Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hello, everybody.
RPG!
Welcome to the Knights of Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda, and tonight, by popular vote, that's right, the patrons had an open field tonight. They could have voted for whatever they wanted to, and they chose to vote for more Stonetop. So we are here to talk about Stonetop. Well, you know, that's just the way it is. How is everybody doing tonight? Hopefully you all are doing well. We are just about 1 week out from NightCon. I got everything is in transit. T-shirts and signs and ribbons and other accoutrements. So I have about 1 week left to make any final preps and final arrangements. I signed up for a couple of games that, you know, most of the games were filled up, but there were some games that were either added late or just had some open slots. So I signed up for some games. I'm still debating what I may want to run. I may just be a player. We'll find out. Maybe, I mean, I'm sure I'll run something maybe ad hoc, but, you know, maybe I'll just be a player, you know, suffer some level appropriate damage, as they say. But all in all, it looks like it's going to be an incredibly amazing, wonderful, fantastical, incredible experience. And I'm really looking forward to it. And I hope I get to have a lot of fun. So welcome everyone. Yeah. So, I just realized, I don't think I updated the thumbnail. So I need to do that now.
AD tip $10, NightCon higher PE.
Hi, P. Hey, thank you. Yes, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm planning on squeezing in some time to do some streams. I really would love. I'm gonna probably bring some AV equipment. You know, being in Columbus is nice. It means I don't have to fly. So Columbus, Origins, and Gen Con are both great because I drive my car, so it's a lot easier for me to bring my full AV setup. And, you know, in the years past, we had done some rather large streams where we passed around some microphones. I probably would avoid doing that, but it might be fun to do some, like, you know, kind of some Game Master sit downs with some of the knights who might be willing to, discuss some of the problems that they're. Oh, that was my dog. That they've been having, and we can kind of have like almost like a real time Q&A. You may see me doing this a lot. I must have slept wrong or something on my shoulder or something, and my hand has been like numb. Not like numb, but it's like almost like it fell asleep. And it just feels weird. Anyways, it's been happening it's been like the last 2 days. But and no, I don't think it's a heart attack. Considering I played racquetball and went for a run and all that other stuff. It just feels weird. Scotty, we will miss you. Well, we never know, but we hope that there will be a next year. So. I mean, I knew it was you, Edward.
Edward tipped $10. Oops, I spelled my name wrong and I can't let that stand. Hashtag Stone Year.
Edward with the pedantic spelling correction of his name, even though I don't think I even said Edward. Well, but thank you, Edward. Yes. By the way, the tip goal is Stone Year will never die. The super chat goal is seriously, fuck Stonetop. We have been talking about it for a very long time. As a side note, I am retiring. Thanks to you guys, I am retiring my old Logitech G. I don't even know what it's called. My G413 Carbon, and this is our new. This is our new keyboard. Uh-oh. We're coming in with some massive Tier 1 subs from Scotty F. Look at that. Tier 1 sub for Nanaki, Ooze, Surza, The Res Lettuce, and Crimson Rover. Scotty F. Thank you. That's awesome, Scotty. Thank you, Scotty. So hopefully, my old keyboard was kind of falling apart anyways, but hopefully, hold on a second here. Let's see if we can all right, here. I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. This was the old keyboard. This is the new keyboard. There we go. Here, let me. If I sound weird, let me know, because it means I need to tweak my audio a little bit. I changed it so that we could hear the clickety clack. Anyways, while I was clickety clacketing, we got a bunch of super chats. So thank you, Scotty F, for the gift subs. He says, so that's what that button does in Twitch. Yes, that is what that button does in Twitch. Thank you. Twitch isn't bad, by the way. I get most of that, so pretty good. So thank you. I appreciate it. The Twitch the Twitch Prime subs and the Twitch Tier 1 subs actually do make a difference, and I really appreciate everybody who does go ahead and remember to do that. I usually forget, so I usually appreciate it when someone else reminds people to do it, but thank you so much for doing that. Mark, with a $25 super chat, says, I am over Stonetop. Well, the way to look at it, Mark, is it's not just about Stonetop. It's about PBTA as a whole, right? It's about understanding that there's, that this isn't just about, if it was just about one game, I would ignore it. But I think that a lot of the principles of Stonetop can be applied not only to most RPGs, but certainly most PBTA RPGs, Daggerheart, anything like that. Blades in the Dark, you name it. You really love this game, huh? Longest review streak ever. I mean, technically, we've done longer streaks for Pathfinder 2. But, well, I mean, to be honest with you, Care, I don't really do this channel for views. I do this channel because of a very small group of patrons who support this content. And one of the best and clearest ways to send a sign that you like a content is with people's tips and super chats. That's kind of how I get my living. And so when people really come up and show a lot of support, financial or otherwise, for a particular topic, I am inclined to talk about it. And so while I'm certainly occasionally I will just have a topic that only I care about and no one else cares about, like, go watch any of my Wilderfeast streams, or the endless amount of the One Ring streams that I did. But in this case, we have some very passionate people who are very interested in this game. That being said, we started off this series with about 110, 120 viewers, and we are currently at 48. So we have lost some. Klobster Roll, who I will be playing in 2 of his Daggerheart games, their Daggerheart games. After listening to your many thoughts on Daggerheart and how it should be ran and played, I would love to set your expectations way low for my games. Okay, I know you're being pedantic and flippant. Number one, I will honestly say this, Klobster. I somewhat have been hesitant to sign up for other people's games for that exact reason. Now, I assume you're kind of joking, but even if I really make it clear that I'm not judging you, I think a lot of people might not be comfortable, GMing for me, which is silly, stupid, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to say that you don't feel a certain way. So I would just simply say that I'm not setting any sort of expectation or bar, Sarak, what's Stonetop? Been busy reaching north. You sure have, Sarak. It is a PBTA game that has been about 10 plus years in the making. Yes. Jake says, I love the Wilderfeast streams. Me too, Jake. Me too. Exactly, Marcus. No, it's that is true, and whether I'm a player, it's one thing if I'm running the game, but it's another thing that, if I'm a player and I feel like people are going to be like either nervous or they're going to feel like they need to change their GMing style up, or there might be, they might be really deferential to me or like, what do you think, Derek? And it's like, look, it's your game. I'm just here to play it, so I do sign up for those games, a little, I don't want to say hesitantly, but I'm kind of aware of that, that it could be a thing. Anyways. So, why don't we go ahead and get started? Hey, that's Photoshop. All right, there we go. Trekkie says, I'm here for Stonetop, observations on RPGs, and Derek's nervousness around alt baddies. It's true. It is true.
Jackal Torn Moons tipped $5. Clinking beer mugs emoji. Clinking beer mugs emoji. Please put into no more Stonetop PLS. I blame Gold Cat for everything.
I love that we're very, it's like, hey, look, I tip the way I tip, but please put it into no more Stonetop. I blame Goldicat. I mean, that is a safe assumption here that you can run, you can blame Goldicat. That's all right. There we go. It will take a second to update. So. All right, let's, yes, it's always a good thing to do. All right, so we have covered so far in our streams pretty much all of the rules of Stonetop. We've covered, obviously we've covered getting started, right? How to start the game. This really basically covers session 0. There's an entire chapter, which honestly happens at the beginning of the book, about how to get this game started and how to, set expectations and how to do all that stuff. Then we get into the actual playing of the game. The PBTA language that some people love and some people hate and some people look somewhat shifty-eyed at. Things like the conversation and the agenda and your principles and all that other jazz. But it does give us a high-level overview of the game. We then covered every single one of the playbooks. We then covered the GM's agenda and how the GM is supposed to run the game. We talked about GM moves, examples of play, principles, and again, this is a clinic on how to run PBTA. We then did the same thing for the basic moves of the game, as well as a handful of the special moves of the game. These are the moves of the game that you will use over and over and over again. And I consider it to be everyone's responsibility, GMs and players, to know these rules fairly well, because these are the ones that you're going to need to be looking out for, and these are the ones that the game cares about. Moves that might appear on your specific playbook or on your specific arcana or whatever, I don't think that's the GM's responsibility. I think that's your responsibility. You chose that move on your book, and that's the important thing. Didn't we just have a conversation today, you crazy loony, about how your wife was yelling at you? Didn't we do this just today? Again, it'll take a minute to update. I mean, Edward says, confirmed that we did. What is happening right now? It's in Carnot. Don't do it. I will not be held responsible, okay? I refuse to accept any sort of blame for this. This is, yeah. Was that a misdeed? I think it was a misdeed, right? By the way, is there any doubts that anyone... Yeah, no. Now the Eye of Mordor is actually Goldicat's wife, or wife-to-be, because they're not even married yet, technically. Anyways, I got the white monsters. You know what? The Patreon and the GM hasn't voted yet. And you guys used all your fellowship last time, so you're at 0. So you need that fellowship. Yeah, not too late to return them is what she's thinking. Okay. Sorry, we're getting way off topic talking about our interpersonal lives. It's like we're just taking a Discord conversation and just having it live. Anyways, by the way, if you haven't caught our One Ring game, I think you should. I know actual plays kind of suck. And, ours is an actual play. So it's got lots of, table talk and miscellaneous bullshit.
Scott if tipped $50. Stupid impulsive shit budget forever.
Well, Scotty, you can't make it to NightCon, so why not else, We're going to have a lot of shirts available. We're going to have some cool merch, stickers, notebooks. And, of course, there's Origins itself, with some of our friends giving KOLC discount codes. So I approve. Thank you, Scotty. I will say though, good news is that we had some very, Gull, Scotty, so many of you who donate and tip and or just plain patrons, which is basically like tipping, like promissory note, like getting it in writing, linking it to your bank account to tip. But thanks to the incredible support of so many kind and generous people, like NightCon is going to be number one. We were able to slash the cost from $150 a person down to $50 a person.
Jacob Online tipped $5. I just felt left out.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree, Jake. I mean, I think you should all feel pretty left out, and I don't know any better way than to get onto this hype train than to just go ahead and tip. Jake, thank you so much. But again, it kind of gets back to what I said. Why am I talking about Stonetop so much? Well, because we have some really active, engaged people who really love this topic, and it's not like a pure form of capitalism. But our model as a YouTube channel is so weirdly different than everyone else's. Everyone else has to get those clicks. They have to get those views. And that means that they have to cast a very wide net. Whereas we can be a little bit more laser focused. The other thing is, real talk, this as a dedicated Night of Last Call viewer. Most people get, one video a week, maybe, 15 minutes, 10 minutes to talk about a topic. Well, if I have a lot to talk about, I'll just stream again and stream again and stream again. And I'll produce 25 hours of content in 1 week. So, yeah, it's like at the end of the day, if there's something that I'm nerding out about and I want to talk about it or I'm excited to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it. Like, NightCon is coming up, and I've been kind of busy, even though I did stream 3 times in 24 hours this last weekend. But like, if Vin, okay, self-confessed cynic, as some of you know him here in chat, if Vin was like, I want to talk about Daggerheart, I'd be like, okay, clearing the schedule, waking up at 4 or 5 in the morning, let's get Vin on so we can talk about Daggerheart, because I'd love to talk to Vin about Daggerheart, I'd love to talk about it and breed it up from that perspective. And so again, we have a very unique situation here, and we have some really generous people who help support it. Our patrons, those of you in the audience who support and tip. But again, I'd really appreciate all of you. Let's see here. Shinobi says, I get home from work and jump in here, hearing all this nerd talk about the shadow and the eye, and I feel like I'm in the right place. Correct. We make inside jokes using super obscure RPGs to discuss how Galdacat's wife or fiance is getting mad at him for spending too much money here, in the form of misdeeds, which is accumulating shadow, and the eye awareness being that of the ire of his wife to be. Well, I mean, we just did it 2 days ago, Pumpkin. So yeah, but it's a good episode. It's a great example of. We learn how to combat, and but we also had some really fun, unexpected play patterns that emerged, and so I thought it was really, really cool. Derek's Tolkien nerddom is impressive. Yes, I guess pathetic could be one way to say it. Impressive would be another way. NightCon is being held at the Origins Game Fair. It's not secret or anything like that. But with the last couple of years, more and more members of the Knights of Last Call have been showing up at Origins, the gaming convention. And so this year I put a down payment down, and I paid many thousands of dollars to secure our own private room, our own private lounge, where basically we can play games with each other in peace and not have to worry about finding a spot or being in a very loud, crowded room. Or at least if someone is being loud, it's going to be a fellow knight, and I can tell them to shut up. And yeah, so that's all it really is. It's not really a convention. It's just at Origins. Now, that being said, you do have to be a member of the Knights of Last Call Patreon, and we asked everybody to chip in $50 to cover expenses, but it's not like some super secret tech or something. But yeah, Gull says I'd watch that, referring to me having Vin on. I'd love to see the fusion that Derek, Vin, and Daggerheart would create. I'd bring Vin on for some Night Heart, some Night Heart development. He did give it a B plus A minus, which I think is insanely high grade from Vin. You know. Stone Age was suggested earlier, Christopher, but you know what? You came up with it on your own. I'll give you the credit. Jake says, I wish more actual plays were actual plays. And to that end, there's a couple of things about our actual plays. Number one, it's live. We are doing it. Fuck it, we'll do it live. So we are doing it live, which most people do not do. I mean, even technically Critical Role doesn't do it live anymore. But even when Critical Role did do it live, obviously they had a pretty substantial production team and they were taking it pretty seriously. I'm not incapable of taking a production very seriously, as many of you know, but I certainly don't have a team. But this isn't really being taken seriously. It's more of me just quickly throwing together an overlay and putting some Zoom call windows in there. That being said, there's technical issues and goofs. But the other thing is my style of gaming, even as a GM, is to talk about the mechanics. It's to talk about the rules. It's to talk about the interactions of the rules with the fiction, with the story, with what's going on, because I think rules are cool. You know, people talk about the rule of cool. Nah. What about rules are cool? What about that rule, huh? Gull, to be fair, she isn't mad. She just doesn't understand why on earth I would spend my money on this. To be fair, you are going to be playing you're already playing in 1, and you're going to be playing in 2 KOLC games. So you could argue that you're kind of sort of paying for that. Sort of. Is Gold a Cat a reference to Gold a Cot? It is. I'm answering for Gull, but yes, it is. Christopher, we have a first look on the age system. So if you look up KOLC or Knight's Last Call and you look up Fantasy Age, you'll find our take on it. Fantasy Age is the generic version of a game system that was created for Dragon Age, the video game. So it was created by Green Ronin Publishing, and they made Dragon Age. Eventually, they lost the license to publish for Dragon Age, but then they sort of reproduced it as a generic game, which you see this happen all the time. Green Ronin specifically, like they created a Song of Ice and Fire game, which is really cool. They lost the license to that, obviously, but then they reproduced the game system as something called the Chronicle system or the Sword Chronicle system or something. But you see that happen a lot. Genesis is that, for example, from Fantasy Flight, or whoever produces it now, Edge, I guess. Anyway. Mark is sending a $5 super chat to Gold Cat for couples therapy. Look, see the love? See the love? See the love that's happening on here? I owe you $5. Deal. I'll have it sent your way. Actually, I owe you like $4.75 because YouTube does take their cut. Derek, I got Worldwide Wrestling 2nd edition in the mail the other day. Have I played that one? I don't know, Shinobi. Have I? Have I played Worldwide Wrestling? Yes, I have played. Technically, no. I have not played the 2nd edition of the game. I played the 1st edition. Pumpkin says, I also prefer rules are cool over the rule of cool. Love it. Yes. All right. Sword Chronicle. That's it. So tonight we are going to be covering First Adventure. So after covering the rules, we are now going to basically be getting into just advice. So believe it or not, we're going to be going through this faster than we otherwise would because, again, I really stress that if you're really interested in this game, you should pick it up. Mark, only the good ones. So this is, and this, by the way, isn't even saying like, because remember the way that the game is structured, the game is, the rules of Stonetop are very, 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 the book is set up very, very procedurally. Okay. The first chapter is running session 0, or running your first session, sitting down, explaining the game, talking about the tone, establishing your baselines, introducing the playbooks. What's the world about? Let's create characters. Let's go around the table and share some interesting facts about our characters and link them together. And then it says, stop. The game clearly, it says, that's it. That's all you're going to do. Now, you were taking a lot of notes. Okay, so now before your first real session, we're going to go through, this is like not just how to create an adventure. No. This is how to create the first adventure. You've just had your starting session. You've had your session 0. You've created characters. They've filled in their details. They've created connections between one another. What do we do next? We set goals, the structure of it, the background, any sort of leading questions or setup questions, dropping a hook, and heading out. So this is specifically tied to creating that first adventure. Okay? So, in fact, I don't know why I was talking. Everything I say on this channel, Jeremy has already written down in this book. But, spring has started. We've got a rich tapestry of characters and backstories. It's time for adventure. Let's put it into play. So what are we trying to do with this very first adventure? Remember the themes and tone of this game. We are trying to paint a picture of daily life in this village. We want to take a look at their relationships. We want to find out what's important to these people. We want to get them out into the field, right? Send them out. It's the hero's journey, right? Get them out of town. Establish details but leave blanks. Play up the mundane and the mysterious. And then eventually bring them back home to the village. Because, right, that is something where this does sort of differ from Hero of a Thousand Faces, right? The classic Joseph R. Campbell book about, the story beats that underlie all storytelling. Well, one of the things that the Hero of a Thousand Faces has is this idea of the hero is unable to go back home. The classic example of this is, I believe the exact step is like, the adventure is presented to the hero. The adventure refuses the adventure, but then something happens that prevents them from going home. And the classic example of this, if you want to see literally a play-by-play of Joseph Campbell's, Hero of a Thousand Faces, it's Star Wars, A New Hope, right? Luke is introduced to this great adventure. All he's ever wanted is adventure and excitement and get off of Tatooine. And Obi-Wan gives him that opportunity. And Luke says, I can't, I'll take you to Tashi Station, or I'll take you to Mos Eisley. But I got farming work to do. And what about Aunt Beru and the droids? And, okay. But then they head back to his house and it's burned down, right? It got stormtroopered up. So this situation here is a little different because we don't want to burn down the village, right? We want them to keep returning to the village. So this does create sort of a unique, stylistic tonal difference from what we're kind of used to from these sort of stories. Anyways, so in this example of examples, it's going to take you step by step. We should start in Stonetop. We should make it feel real. We should show slice of life and reinforce that this is your home and it's worth fighting for. Then look at the NPCs and the relationships that were established during your introduction. Your players spent time choosing those NPCs from a list on their playbooks. They added those elements to your shared communal map. They were doing that because they were sending you a message. This is what I care about. This is what I'm interested in. By highlighting on those NPCs and those relationships, you're basically telling that player, I heard you, I listened, I care, let's get into it. Let's explore the space together. Okay? And of course, keep your eye open, right? We've drawn maps, leaving blanks. So look out for surprises as too. It may have not come up during that first session, but maybe we find out that there's a little bit of a fling between one of the NPCs and one of the characters, or like that. Don't feel so locked in or inflexible. Then throw a crisis at them, right? Figure out what's important to them, right? To keep it in the crosshairs. If it becomes apparent that your group really, really cares, about a tavern or really cares about a particular NPC, maybe there's an NPC that's sort of like the village's, communal grandfather, okay, great, cool. You've identified something that's important to me. Great. That's fodder for later. Now, whatever you do, this man, I mean, I am of the heterosexual persuasion, but I want to marry this man because just the way that the way he doesn't faff about in his writing and the bluntness and the directness, whatever you do, don't spend very long in Stonetop itself. Get them into the field on an adventure as soon as possible. Okay, because I already know what so many people, so many of you would do in this situation. By the way, this section here is exactly how I run Blades in the Dark. How I think that I think John Harper runs Blades in the Dark wrong. Right? Where I'll hear people go, Derek, how do you get through 2 scores in a single evening of play? My group spent the entire session just in free play, just chatting with each other and FBT. No. No. The players are doing something. Push them. Okay, they did something. Cool. Ask them how that's a score. Ask them to detail their plan and go to it. Pathfinder PhD, thank you for the Prime sub, 13-month. Hype. Nikon. Hype. Pathfinder PhD, thank you so much. Appreciate you. I'm also very hyped for Nikon Session 0 myself. I'm pretty sure I signed up for one of your games, I think, ? Cut the FBT. Yeah. And Osily says, what's wrong with FBT? I'll tell you what's wrong with FBT. This is not about immersion. It's about engagement. It's about storytelling. Okay? You need to look at these games through the eyes and lens of a director, of an editor. Okay? Now, there's nothing wrong with characters having, dialogue if that dialogue is meaningful. One of the common mistakes, the term that some people find, because some people find fluffy bullshit time offensive or dismissive. Fair enough. We did come up with it, just kind of memeingly. I didn't even come up with it, by the way. Smith came up with it. But the term that the Knights have kind of championed that appreciated it, they call it non-mechanical role-playing is what they call FBT. So there is such a thing as conversation and dialogue that matters, that's important, okay? But a lot of what people do, in my experience, in RPGs, is they faff about. They faff about. And any good editor, any good director would cut that scene from their movie because it doesn't advance the plot. And that's what we're here for. We're here to tell stories, in my opinion, and seemingly in Jeremy's opinion. And the reason why that, it says, right now your job is to get the action rolling and punctuate their lives with adventure. That's one of your core goals as a game master in this game, right? You want to dive into it and you want to get their lives full of adventure. I see someone said one of my favorite quotes. Mickey said one of my favorite quotes. A ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships were made for, right? So the idea is that we want to get the characters out there. We want to get them rolling. And also, too, you know what? Talk is cheap. A lot of people in role-playing games want to talk the talk that they didn't earn. You know, I feel that way, by the way, about elaborate backstories. Don't write something down. Come to the table, show up, make it happen, then talk about it, right? Share it together. Far more meaningful to talk about stuff that you actually did that mattered to the game, to all of you, okay? Than just, faffing about. I mean, to be honest with you, in real life, I don't want to have shitty conversations about the weather or, how's it hanging? Please. My life is already full of meaningless conversations. I don't want more of them. Certainly not on my Friday night game. So, yeah. Dr. Waits. Exactly. My whole life is FBT. I'm gaming to escape it. Never leaving home is for the NPCs. That's another great way of thinking about it. So, and Goal here is saying kind of the same thing that I was saying, right? Which is to say, let the conversation, let the dialogue emerge through adventure, not through mundanity, So, yeah. And you know what? I think hard scene framing is something that people struggle with. Mickey, I think it was after our first The One Ring session. It may have been after we cut the stream. But, I stayed on the Zoom call with the players for another 15 or 20 minutes. And I didn't mean to do like stars and wishes or anything like that. But like people were, kind of sharing thoughts about what they thought about the first session. And I don't remember who it was. Might have been Jackal or somebody. But they said, I really liked how, I think it was their character. It was Alfred, and his character, the old man, the old scholar, kind of, had a scene that he kind of created of his own doing, and took his good friend Isengard back to his house and kind of had him help him, dig up his old war chest and find his old armor and his old weapons and kind of help me put this stuff on, right? I'm going back out on the field. And, I let him have his moment. And then I was like, all right, the next morning, as the sun rises on barely rises on a gray and cloudy day, thick pools of water, rivulets of water pool thickly on the streets as you guys mount, put the last of your goods and supplies on the backs of your stout ponies and horseback and begin to leave Bree. And after the game, I kind of cut him off. And after the game, apparently it was Gull who was in that scene, basically said, I loved how you did that. Like, we had, we had this little moment of characterization. We established what was going on in this scene, and I yelled cut, right? I was being an editor in that scene. I wasn't going to not let them have their scene, but I also wasn't going to let this scene... I mean, have none of you ever watched a movie that was edited badly, and you're sitting here watching a scene being like, this scene should have ended minutes ago, or like, why did this scene even get included in the movie? And there's a reason there's a director's cut, right? They filmed something, but the editor decided that it was better that they didn't have it. Anyways, so, yeah, exactly. There's, we talk about this all the time in, combat, which is, think about combat in RPGs. Man, we were off on a tangent tonight. In combat, RPGs often have this problem, right? Which is the fight starts really intensely tense, and then you reach this moment where the party turns a corner, and the question of whether or not the party will win this fight has basically been concluded, right? There were 3 monsters. It was kind of dicey, but then a big heel got dropped, and one of the monsters got dropped, and now it's just cleanup. We call it cleanup, right? And you're going through the motions. You still are going to have another 2 to 3 rounds of combat, but there's really no tension anymore. And it'd be awesome and amazing if there was a way that once you sort of solve the issue of that combat, if it could quickly and resolve. And original D&D had this in the form of morale rules, which is to say, once it was very clear that the bad guys really couldn't win anymore, and that doesn't mean that the last of them died. It meant that, okay, it was 5-on-5, and then you quickly killed 2 of us. Now it's 5-on-3. We couldn't kill you when it was 5-on-3. Or sorry, we couldn't kill you when it was 5-on-5. Now it's 3-on-5. We're definitely not going to kill you. We're going to run away. And, so we don't have that anymore in modern D&D games. So the games, they just drag on. Well, it's the same thing true with scenes, right? Once we have, once we have an incredible moment, once we have a great moment, cut, go to the next one, which is good. Yes, very much. The meeting should have been an email. Correct. No, get them out of town. Get them adventuring on the town's behalf, sweating and bleeding for their kith and kin. Don't let Stonetop be a source of conflict yet, right? Let it cook, let it cook. And by the way, I mean, eventually I need to work on this. Okay, let me rephrase it. I'm good at doing it, I think. I'm not trying to but I think I'm pretty good at it, but I don't know that I'm good at teaching it. When we did our Patreon poll over what are the GMing skills that you have the hardest time with, the top 2 were narrating and directing, which is to say, giving useful and good descriptions of stuff and knowing how to edit and frame and control the pace of play. Those were the 2 skills that, we had. It was a fairly large poll that a lot of patron members answered, that they said that they struggled with the most. And it was like 3rd place was like considerably lower than the top 2. So I understand that is something that people do struggle with. Okay. And again, a lot of these are just basic stuff here, but play up the mysterious, the mundane, establish details and leave blanks. You're not here to answer all the questions yet. But you know what? It's fine if you start, getting into some of the details. But again, not every question, not everything needs a solution. And in fact, it's fine. I know this is heresy. This is fine to say, that is a great question. I don't know the answer to that yet. We should definitely come back to that and figure it out. Again, there's this, oh man, it's such a relief when you can just put down the facade that everything is planned, that you have an answer for everything, that you prepped every single detail of every single rock, of every single twig on this entire world. It's exhausting to keep that up, that lie to people. When you can just be like, I don't know, guys. I have no idea. But you know what? We should totally get back to that. That's a great question. We'll figure it out later. That's okay. Good. It's such a relief. So many GMs are so worried. They've been convinced, they've been lied to, they've been told that your only job is to, immerse to maintain the suspension of disbelief. Maintain the suspension of disbelief. There's people, no offense to you, there are people out there, evangelizing for 4D role playing or whatever the fuck that is. And they're basically like, never drop character, never give them even a hint of a moment that this is a game, never let them think for a moment, that's pressure you don't need. That's pressure you don't need. And I think when you can learn to let that shit go, you're going to have a better time game mastering. So. Right. Put the GM behind a curtain. Yeah, no, why don't you, instead of being behind the curtain, why don't you sit at the table with your friends? Why don't you enjoy this collaborative experience together? Now, again, I'm not trying to poo-poo on every element of, that kind of game and play. Competitive. If I'm playing a competitive type role-playing game, I do kind of want to have, my dungeon created, my monster stat blocks kind of filled in, and, I'm throwing down the gauntlet and like, okay, players, what do you got? And again, I may not be their enemy, but I'm definitely their opposition. I'm definitely their adversary. And in that situation, I actually find it more fun to have that stuff planned out, because that way I know that my bias isn't influencing the validity of their victory or of their loss. I didn't just decide it. It was written in advance, and that's just the way the dice fell, But yes, why is Ilios such a joyless prick is a great question. Now, I haven't used a DM screen in a very long time. And then ultimately, whatever your first adventure is, it should end with them coming back to Stonetop. Now, this will probably happen very naturally, but, again, there's a classic, we're all guilty of it, right? Which is this idea of just escalate. And to be clear, that's probably because of years of playing D&D or Pathfinder. Because in D&D and Pathfinder, the characters themselves escalate, right? Like, you started off with like walking, and within a couple of levels, you're taking shadow steeds, and then within a couple of levels, you're airwalking, and then within a couple of levels, you're teleporting or plane shifting. It like requires you to keep escalating the stakes, to keep escalating the scale, the size, the scope. Everything needs to be turned to 11, and then to 12, and then to 15, and then to 20. Not every game is like that. And, sometimes it's important that you remember that we can keep the scale and scope of things small. Again, very blunt and direct from Jeremy here. Let them go home. Encourage them to go home. The whole premise of the game falls apart if they don't. Again, the concept of a GM screen really starts to fall apart when you do stuff like me, where I have my players track the monster's hit points for me. And I'm already rolling. In fact, I'm already rolling my dice in front of the screen, so really there's no purpose or point to it at all. So, here we go into the structure of what the first adventure would look like. We start up with a setup with a bunch of loaded questions, which might include a love letter or two. And we haven't covered love letters. We'll get there eventually. But love letters are basically one-time, one-use, customized moves that you're sort of writing as if it was a letter to that player character. We then set the scene. We zoom in on the village at a particular place and time. We then drop the hook. We show signs of trouble. We reveal an unwelcome truth. We offer an opportunity. We tell them the consequences, etc. This is basically how I run every first session of my Blades in the Dark game. During the course of creating your crew in Blades in the Dark, there will be one group that you pissed off and one group that you helped out. And all I do is I basically use those two things and offer you either an opportunity or I reveal signs of an unwelcome truth, and I let the players decide which they're going to start interacting with. Then they will start to make preparations. They'll travel towards the point of the adventure. Then they will probably lead to the resolution of the adventure, either dealing with the danger or dealing with the opportunity. They'll explore a strange ruin. They will talk to some NPC. They'll fight. They'll sneak. They'll make a daring escape. And then finally, the aftermath, the return home, the triumphant or not triumphant return, the reactions of their friends and neighbors. And there will be questions unanswered. Done well, you will have dealt with one threat, right? But discovered two more. Or dealt with one threat, discovered a new threat, and also an opportunity. But again, Jeremy hasn't said this yet, but try to avoid making them existential. Because if you tell the players, if you do the Pathfinder thing, right? Pathfinder adventure paths do this all the time. The adventure is complete, but you find a diary. And in the diary it says, ha ha ha, Today will be the last day. In but a few short hours, finally, the preparations will be complete, and King Gorblag will unleash his new devastating reign of terror upon the village of Sandpoint. Haha, there is little anyone can do about it now. In just 2 days' time, the world will come to fear our power. And the players go, okay, I guess we gotta fucking go deal with that. Right? There's always this desire to just keep turning up the volume. No, let them have their win. Let the tension of, let the resolution of the game lead you to a point of lower energy. That's how you get quiet moments in the village. That's how you get the passage of time. That's how you get the players returning to their village and worrying about, their crush on the blacksmith. Because if you're telling them, oh, that's great that you stopped that orc, but what about the undead necromancer? He's gaining his power. Soon he will come. He will destroy everything that you love. And you're like, well, I guess we have to go deal with that. What am I supposed to do? Not go deal with that? Well, of course, we're going to go deal with that. So, yeah. Anyway. So again, we, to create an adventure, we start off with the background. Remember, we did start off with a roll. Okay? There was a roll, which you roll at the beginning of every season. It kind of sets the tone for the season. I believe it's called the Seasons Change roll. You remember that? One player makes it on behalf of the entire group. You're going to use that roll to create your adventure. If the players chose an opportunity, then create an opportunity. If the players chose interesting news, then pick or ask the players to pick. What are you more interested in? A possible opportunity to improve the village? Or was there some, arcanum or treasure that was established during your guys' conversations that you're more interested in? Pick one. That's what the interesting news is about. If they chose valuable insight, then pick a threat and start giving them more information about them. And again, this goes through how if you rolled a 7, 8, or 9, what is a threat and a gain? Now again, they're being very helpful here. They're walking you through this step by step. As you design a threat, make sure to make it external, so it gets you out of Stonetop. 2, nearby, that way it's not too difficult of a journey and they can get there and get back. 3, make it Stonetop's problem, something that threatens that village and those villagers, and that they're the ones who have to deal with it. And something urgent, right? Something that impulses them to action. And again, you could pick up a threat that came up during the introductions, or it could be something new that strikes your fancy, something cool that you found from a setting guide, or, if you're me, something that you ruthlessly copied from any number of fantasy tropes or Conan the Barbarian novels, which is 99% of what I create. So, again, copious examples. And just more and more and more and more examples of this. Like literally taking you through every single step. If they chose unexpected bounty, then the threat should be revealed in the course of collecting said bounty. Choose a bounty. Remember, this is if you rolled 7, 8, or 9, right? It's a threat and it's an opportunity. Choose a bounty, trade, plentiful game, valuables that will put the villagers or someone in the path. I need a bounty that will draw villagers out into the wood despite the Crinwin. That's like the goblins, I think. And I decide that spring has broken warm and early. Game is plentiful, and trappers are busy setting snares and harvesting fur and meat, when one of the trappers could be abducted by the Crinwin. Right? So it's like, hey, there you go. When in doubt, have the Crinwin kidnap some kids. So there's literally a breakdown of every single thing that the players could have chosen, along with an example. And then the worst case scenario is that they rolled badly and that when spring sprang, threats abound. Not an opportunity, not a threat and an opportunity, just a threat. Okay? Things are going to start off in a bad position, and they're going to get worse. Again, external, nearby, problem, urgent. There's a threat, there's a problem, and the players have to deal with it. Now, if your initial adventure involves a threat, and it usually will, I mean, they could have rolled really well, and it's just an opportunity, try to flesh it out using the guidelines found in the threats chapter, which comes after this chapter. Try to come up with an impending doom and make the first grim portent the hook for your first adventure. Now, this is Apocalypse World / Dungeon World 101. This is what we call a front, traditionally, but this game calls a threat. Okay? The way that a threat works, same thing the way that a front works in Dungeon World, is you give that threat a name, then that threat has a type. Okay, in this case, this is a villain threat. Does that really mean anything? No, not really, but it's letting you know that this is a person. Right? A threat could also be, right, the threat could be like the old Stone River Dam. And the threat is that this heavy rains are going to break the dam and flood the valley and wipe out everybody. Then we get the threat's instinct, okay? To indulge its ego. Well, okay, yes, it informs. What I'm saying is it doesn't have a, like, oh, it's a +2 bonus to this. It's letting you know, okay, it's a person, it's a villain. You know, it's not like a dam, right? Yes, because even in Dungeon World, there was like arcane threats, chittering hordes, or planar powers, or whatever like that, you know. Anyways, then we get its instinct, okay? What is instinct? This is a very short, I can't even stress this enough, people. Dungeon World is, for me, one of the easiest games to run. And the reason is because every monster and every threat has what is called an instinct, which means that if you don't know anything else what to do, this is what you should do, right? Like, when push comes to shove, what is Sadra the Swin going to do? They're going to indulge its ego. When in doubt, when you are trying to think about a move, about a threat, about an opportunity, about how this character would react, about how this threat would react, what do I do here? I'm going to indulge its ego. That is my fundamental baseline. All right? Then we have a little bit of information here. And then we have, these are called grim portents. Now, Dungeon World and Apocalypse World were created before clocks. This is a clock. And the only difference is that the clock's name, or, the clock would be called Subjugate the Town, Killing and Mesmerizing Any Opposition. That would be the name of the clock, right? When you create a clock in classic Blades in the Dark structure, you're putting what will happen if the clock completes. And something good or something bad. In this case, it's the doom that will befall if the clock completes. The difference is that threats and fronts, basically, instead of just having tick, 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 you basically have a description for each tick. Okay? So that's why they're called the grim portents. They're the portents, right? They're the foreshadowing of this eventual doom. They are a diegetic way of showing the players how this threat is getting closer and closer to fulfilling its horrible promise. So first, children go missing. Then some of the children return, but they are strange. And at first people are, excited that the children return, but they're not the same that they were. Then the children begin gathering in secret, and they begin having strange meetings and speaking in strange tongues and, you know what I mean? All this weird, crazy, strange, cultish behavior. And then finally, this villain reveals itself to the townsfolk, demanding servitude. And finally, they destroy the town, either killing everyone who opposes them or binding them all forever as slaves to its will. Did you ever see that made-for-TV movie, Storm of the Century? It was a Stephen King miniseries, right? It's like that villain. That's kind of that's the vibe I'm getting here, by the way. I don't know if you remember that miniseries. I think it was a book. No, it wasn't a book. I think Stephen King specifically wrote it to be a TV miniseries. It was like mid-late 90s. It's called Storm of the Century. Had the guy from Wings. Anyways. And then typically with a threat, you're going to put stakes. And stakes are basically like, what are the questions that really impact that the players are going to care about? Maybe the ones that affect them or the NPCs that they care about. How will these, portentous of doom ultimately affect them and the stuff that they do care about? No. The TV show Wings. I don't remember his character. I don't remember the actor's name. So, anyways. So, in this case, one of the players rolled a 7 through 9 for season change. And my central threat is the Swin that's driving the Crinwin to steal children. So I'm guessing that a Swin is some sort of fae creature, right? So you have some sort of villainous fae, weird fae creature who's, stealing the town's children. Weird, creepy, scary. Awesome. So after you have that core opportunity or that core threat, depending on what they rolled, all right, now we have to firm up the details and we have to create a hook. And that hook needs to be actionable. It needs to involve all of the PCs and it needs to communicate urgency. Remember, make it clear to the PCs that if they just sit on their hands, something bad will happen and or something will, an opportunity will be lost. Don't hint at it. Make it clear. If this game hasn't taught you anything else, it's about communicating. When you create an the hook, make it something the players can actually do something about and imply an obvious first step. Now that may not be the step that they take, but let them know, hey, if you want to deal with this, this is one way that you can start dealing with it right now, today. So this is all just fantastic advice. Now, here's where you're going to ask a bunch of loaded questions, right? The GM's secret arsenal in almost every RPG game is asking loaded questions. And this is where you kind of, not only you're setting the tone just through the questions that you ask, okay? And one of my favorite loaded questions games is Dread. In Dread, you don't really have a character sheet. Instead, in Dread, you get given a character questionnaire. Okay, and they ask you 10 questions, and the last question is always, "What is your name?" So it's really a 9-question questionnaire. But the questions start off very benign, and then they get more and more and more directed as you go down this list. So, for example, one of the introductory stories is that they have in here is Beneath the Full Moon, right? You're going camping in a remote wilderness area as part of like a college summer camp survival, thing, right? Anyways, so you've got these questionnaires, which are like they just get weirder and more directed as you go through them. Like, for example, it says the first question is, you decided to major in economics because you saw it as the antithesis of what your controlling father wanted. What degree had he planned for you? What upbeat children's show frightened you as a kid? Why? As part of dividing up the duties for this trip, you were entrusted with the map and compass. Why? Why did you decide to do an adventure camping trip this summer instead of working to gain extra money? It only took you a day to realize that when they were referred to challenging in the trip brochure, they were referring to physical challenges. How are you dealing with your physical limitation? Which of the others don't you trust, and why? You were busted last night for bringing some beer on the trip and really resented the guide for making you dump it out. How do you feel about him? While your school is in a particularly large city, you come from a very small town. How do your small town sensibilities sometimes get you into trouble with the other students? If you die on this trip, you will go to hell unless you get absolution for what sin that you've never told anyone about. What habit do you have that offends other people? What do you do to pretend to feel passionately about just to impress people? How did your parents die? What is your name? So, like, you can see that some of those questions give you details. Like, oh, your character has a map and compass. Why? Why are you the one that was given the map and the compass? I'm establishing that you do have a map and a compass, but why is that? I'm establishing that, you did something terrible. What is it? So there's this idea that loading questions are like really, really good. So like, by the way, as an example of this, I've played this before, and one of my players once basically answered this questionnaire in one of the two ways, which is basically that his father was beating his mother, and he went to shoot his father, accidentally killed his mother instead, then killed his father. Everyone believed him when he said that his father shot his mother, and now he's going on this camping trip to kill himself because he feels so bad about the fact that he killed his mother. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's dread. It's a dark game. And so, he's like, can I combine those in like one answer? Like one complex answer, what sin did I commit that I will die, go to hell for? And, how did my parents die? Can I combine that all into one? Anyways, point is, that was, and by the way, because of that, by the way, in case you haven't noticed, that was a sick little bit of metagaming. Why? Because that player now has established that they do have a gun. That they smuggled or they hid a gun onto this trip because they're planning on killing themselves. So a little bit of metagaming there, a little bit of car opping. So, and, exactly. All right. So, continuing with the example, there's a whole section here about, hey, find cool setting elements and play them up. Not to toot my own horn, but if you look at the first episode of The One Ring, the group left Bree. They traveled east along the Great East Road, and then eventually turned north and followed up the eastern slopes of the Weather Hills. I made sure to spend some time to talk about when they were able to see Amansul, Weathertop, in the distance. The reason being that for most casual Lord of the Rings players, most casual Lord of the Rings fans, people who've seen the movie and stuff, that's a location that you know about. It sort of roots you in the thing. You remember the scene with Aragorn, and it's tied to the very history of this realm and this region, and it's a place that you have a strong connection to. And so for me, it was a really great moment to highlight that specific setting element, just because I know it's one that a lot of people are going to be able to really vibe with. You know, Bree, the Shire, Hobbiton, maybe if you've read the books, the Old Forest, Weathertop, the Fords of the Bruinen, Rivendell, all of these really iconic places that for people who've read the novels or read the books or just seen the movies, that they have a strong connection to. And that's a great opportunity for me to make those connections. Now, ask questions of each character so that all the players are involved. When you're playing this first adventure, right, ask people questions. That's the number one go-to move as a GM. When in doubt, ask the players a question. And again, make them loaded, right? This is a skill, folks. You're going to get better at it. But this is them talking to one of the characters, the GM. Vahid, why do you think Rihanna was wrong to call off the search for the first missing girl? So yes, you're kind of telling the player a little bit of how they feel. That's okay. And again here, correct. But my character, but my immersion, but my, yes, exactly. Everyone in chat is correct. And again, I respect that is the way that some people want to play their RPG games. That is totally fair and totally fine. But Stonetop presumes another way, as do many of these games. Unlike a lot of the games that you may have played, this game has an opinion. This game has a bias, and it wants it to, play out and resolve itself in its way. So Caradoc, who was the girl who went missing a few weeks before the nighttime raid by the Crinwin? Why was she out in the woods alone in late winter? So I'm allowing the player of Caradoc to answer these questions. Who was this girl? Why was she out in the woods? You get to answer that question. And those are details that are now true in our world. Rihanna, what prompted you to call off the search for this girl empty-handed? Why do her players still blame you? Note here. I'll ask Rihanna why they stopped searching for the girl, because she's the marshal and all of her crew are woodsmen. I tweak it to make her decision to stop looking and to twist the knife with some guilt. Not necessarily me, but other people have said that Derek likes to twist the knife. Because, and I've had players, we've had campaigns before where people have said, Derek, this is a great campaign, but I just want to kill orcs, man, and get treasure. And I was like, cool, respect. And we've ditched that campaign and moved on to something a little bit. Literally, we were playing Scum and Villainy. I was twisting knives and making players make really, tough decisions. And the group kind of collaboratively, they didn't come together independently. We were in the middle of the session getting started, and everyone kind of all as one basically said, I think this is too tense for us. Let's go play something that has minimal buy-in and just, we can just kick it and kill. And you know what we did? We started playing Pathfinder 2. We literally switched to Pathfinder 2. Golden Cat says, Derek, you literally made a player have a moral crisis during a travel roll. It was glorious. And, You know what, Gull? You are completely correct. I completely forgot about that. And yes, Mickey, that was a fantastic solution, by the way. It was a great way to sort of split the difference and, come up with a good solution that sort of was a great compromise between, two not ideal situations. So it was kind of like a win-win, win-win. So any case, so this is an example of how the, characters could. Now, somebody said, what if, now Dr. Wade says, what if they said, but I don't feel that way? And they're very strong about it. It's still a useful bit of info. And yes, ultimately, it is the player's decision. However, man, it is tough enough to play, I'm trying to imagine playing an improv theater where someone like opens the door and, they're like the party guest and they open the door and they go, oh my, what a wonderful dress you have. And the person who is being brought into the scene goes, I'm not wearing a dress. That's when there's just this like record scratch, moment. Yeah, I mean, if you want to, if you need to do that, I guess you can. But understand that shit, it's like putting a bullet in the brain of the vibes, the flow, the feel. And, man, it sucks when people do that. It does happen inevitably, but I'm just letting you know, like, it's a real bummer. It does really kind of, shit the bed. Now, if someone spins it like that, that's great. That would be great. What a lovely dress. And they're like, it's not a dress. It's a kilt. Okay. Like that's actually, that's a win. That's a win. That's a fun win because it's funny, right? In this case, most improv skits are for funny, Tim says, by the way, Tim of Night's Last Call was in that campaign that the group decided collaboratively to end early and said most stressful drag racing ever. By the way, this super stressful Scum and Villainy game was basically Fast and Furious in space. That was basically what the game ended up being themed. They were literally a crew who were trying to win illegal space street races, basically. And at the risk of sounding gatekeepy, I just want to say that this is what Emmanuel Galetto, the author of Fabula Ultima, why they talk about the danger of immersive gameplay. No, my character wouldn't do that. It's because you're being selfish. You are putting the mental model that you have over some imaginary character who doesn't even exist, over the flow, the fun, and the engagement level of an entire group of people. Because in your mind, right, the faithful portrayal of your imaginary character who isn't real is more important, right, than the story or what other people are trying to do. And that might be your belief. So Osley says, wouldn't a better question be, how does your character feel about blank? No. And the reason why I say no is because that's not a loaded question. When you give people softball questions, they give you softball answers. Full stop. And that's deliberately what this advice is trying to tell you to do, Osley. It's also what Dread does, right? In fact, I see Tim's in chat here. I was also in the Dread game with the super dark past. Pretty sure I accidentally cut some break lines in my backstory too. I might have Tim's email. I do. Okay, I've got I have actually got Tim's email of these answers. Let me see if I can pull this up here. Da, 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 da. So I just got to the question at the end about my parents. Okay, so Tim is one of the people who played this actual exact query before. I don't know. Where is it, Tim? I have it, but I don't know. I have the email, but I don't know. It doesn't look like I have the attachment. Dang. I was going to read it. Oh, yes, no, of course, but that would have been really fun. But yeah. Dang. Never mind. I don't know why Gmail doesn't have that attachment. I didn't think Gmail like deleted that stuff. Oh, here we go. Okay, I found it. I found Tim's answers to these questions, okay?
Edward tipped $10. I love hanging out with you people. That is all.
Edward, yes, awesome, thank you. All right, so this is Edward. Thank you for the tip. We'll support this. We'll support this night's last call tangent brought to you by Edward. All right, so Tim, our friend Tim from Night's Last Call, Gwildor, of course, and Breck from Night's Last Call fame. This email was sent October 27th, 2009. We played this as a Halloween Dread game over at Smith's. All right. I had it open. Okay. Tim, that questionnaire that I just read for you, Tim answered in this particular, that was the character that Tim got for that game. So, the question. You decided to major in economics because you saw it as the antithesis of what your controlling father wanted. What degree had he planned for you? Tim. He wanted me to be an English major and become a writer/professor. There's no future in writing, and there's no way I want to spend the rest of my life teaching people about nouns, adverbs, and prepositions. What upbeat children's show frightened you as a kid? How or why? Pee-wee's Funhouse. That freaking chair had a mouth and everything was alive. I saw that once as a kid and couldn't sit on any of the furniture in my house for like a week. I was afraid a recliner would eat me if I ever sat in it. Honestly, I'm still a little freaked out by it. As part of the duties of dividing up for this trip, you were entrusted with the maps and compass. Why? Turned out I was the only one who bothered to learn how to read a map effectively. It would have been inefficient for anybody else to read where we're at. We couldn't take any chances on getting lost. Why did you decide to do an adventure camping trip this summer instead of working to earn money? I needed a huge break from my life. With my parents' death so recent, I needed to get away from home and not feel like myself. I can be anyone I want out here. It only took you a day to realize that the challenging was referring to the physical challenges. How are you dealing with the limitations? The rafting is the most difficult. My arms are sore and I didn't bring enough clothes. I'm still wearing damp clothes and I've started having to wear dirty clothes again. I'm fairly fit. I was on the track team, so I'm good running, but not really strong. Which of the others don't you trust? and why? And then I actually put in parentheses, you can decide this once you get to the table. So who knows who Tim chose? You were busted last night for bringing beer on the trip and really resented the guide for making you dump it. How do you feel? Pretty annoyed. I did pay for this trip after all, and I was really looking forward to relaxing in my tent at night and putting back a few cold ones. The last thing I need is some asshole pretending to be my father. While your school isn't in a that was the answer to the question. While your school isn't in a particularly large town, you come from a very small town. How do your small town sensibilities sometimes get you in trouble with the other students? My town relies very much on the wildlife around it. As such, we're pretty good hunters. But the weird thing to other people is how calm we are about killing animals, skinning them, dressing them, and getting to the meat. Not everybody deals with that well. On this trip in particular, I set a trap one night and caught a rabbit. I skinned it and cooked it for everybody, but they all looked at me like I was crazy. It was still really good to eat, though. If you die on this trip, you will go to hell unless you get absolution for what sin? I was angry at my parents for giving me a hard time about picking a different career. I thought I'd play a prank on them, give them a hard time, cost them some money. I punched a hole in the power steering fluid container in their car, a small one so that it would drain slowly. Unfortunately for everybody involved, I think it ran out of fluid just before my parents were killed in the car wreck. I feel responsible because my father was unable to swerve out of the way in time because of the extra effort to steer the wheel. I need to redeem myself somehow. What habit do you have that offends people? I crack my knuckles and snap my neck, shoulders, and toes a lot, especially when I'm nervous. Something about the noise really bothers people. What do you pretend to care about just to impress people? The news. I read up on it just so I have something to discuss with people, but I don't really care. If it doesn't happen to me, I don't care. How did your parents die? My parents were driving home from dinner one night. My mother had a few drinks, so my father was driving. As they were going down a large main road, a semi ran a red light. It slammed on its brakes, but not nearly in time. The semi skidded through the light. It's obvious that my father tried to swerve out of the way, but for some reason, he couldn't make it out of the way in time. The semi destroyed their car. This happened 2 months ago. I have no real proof that it was my fault the car was destroyed, that all the fluids had leaked out before anybody had looked in it. But I think I know the truth, and I'm pretty sure I'm the reason my parents are dead. What is your character's name? Felix. Anyways, that was Tim's answer to that character questionnaire from 2009, by the way. So good stuff, Tim. Great answers, Tim. Great role playing, Debbie. So now this is an example of a love letter. So a love letter is basically a kind of like something that you can send to the player like before the session even, which basically kind of lets them like almost do like a mini solo kind of game. Rebecca says, so did they survive Dread? And then Tim says, and then I murdered your new girlfriend via werewolf. Yeah, sounds good. Actually, that makes sense. I had just started dating Michelle, actually. So we'll cover love letters later, but the idea is that you almost write like a letter to that character. And you can give this to them before the session or right at the beginning of the session. And it kind of gives you like a little bit of a small little custom move. These are really cool for like one-shot PBTA games. And it's basically like taking that idea and applying it more often throughout the game. So in this case, Saren the crone from town has told you countless tales of unnatural creatures that live in the wood. Lately, though, she's been bringing up things that steal away children, such as fae, like the white billies, the blush of dawn, and Auntie Sallow. The glassbrin, beautiful tree spirits who've been known to entrance comely mortals. Swin, big snakes with monkey-like faces, hypnotic eyes, and mesmerizing voices. Or the fomarage, of which she barely whispers, ancient evils hiding in the earth. Old Saren drones on, and she rarely tells the same story twice. So let's see how well you've been listening. Roll plus int. On a 10 plus, hold 2 stories. On a 7 through 9, hold 1 story. When you spend 1 story and tell us the name of one of Saren's tales, ask the GM a question about one of the creatures described above. The GM will tell you something interesting, useful, and relevant as revealed by that tale. On a 6 minus, still hold 1 story, but when you spend it, the GM will tell you 2 versions of the story with conflicting information, only one of which are true. And then it goes into setting the scene, right? We've asked questions, and now we're going to start the play. And this is, again, taking us through step by step. Introduce someone. Reveal some tensions in towns. Talk about something that the town needs or wants. Like, for example, introduce someone interesting, I don't know, the town's mayor or something. Reveal some simmering tensions. She was newly elected and the people aren't really agreeing with her decision makings. It was a tough winter and the food stores ran dry a couple of weeks ago. Show how other people really feel. They're not sure they trust the mayor, and most people are excited to get out there and start regathering food, right? How do you feel about the mayor? Draw out their feelings. Change a relationship. Like, it's literally taking you through step by step, beat by beat. Look, eventually you'll figure out how to do this yourself, but this is a game giving you a worksheet of how to run this first session. It's literally step by step by step. Finally, we know what our threat is. We drop the hook, right? The children are missing. We need to go find them. And again, tons of examples. All the pages I'm skipping over here are just examples of them walking you through all of this. They have a section of what happens if they ignore the hook. Do not force them to act on your hook. It's not your job to lead them down a pre-planned story. It's your job to portray a mysterious world, to play to find out what happens, and to punctuate their lives with adventure. Don't take that away from them. If something feels off, like if the players don't seem to care, call a timeout and check in player to player. Maybe there's something that you missed and you're not sure. Maybe they don't understand what is going on. Or maybe you're compelling. The hook isn't really that compelling. Maybe your players don't think the risk is worth the reward. What do you do then? Well, good thing you asked. Here's the game giving you advice. Shift into downtime. Let some time pass. Maybe let some of those other threats start to come to bear. Now some of the children have begun to return, but they're changed. They're different. The townsfolk start squabbling more, right? Escalate the stakes a little bit until the players do care. Finally, we get to the part of the town where they finally head out into the woods in our example here. We'll use the rules for the journey, the expedition rules. We'll do travel moves. We'll present the travel legs, all the stuff that we talked about before. And then finally, we'll resolve what they're going to do, which is probably going to involve a site, a danger, a discovery, and some NPCs, all of which get their own chapter in this game. So we'll get to that stuff eventually, right? But eventually the players will get where they're going after they travel and will attempt to deal with the threat or seize that opportunity. This is where we zoom in on the action. We start making GM moves. The PCs respond. Occasionally the conversation will trigger moves and we'll all find out what happens together. We'll all find out what happens together. Again, for me, that is what makes these games so fun. When I started my Fabula Ultima campaign, I didn't even know what it was about. It became about the crystals, of elemental energy. I thought I had this idea planned that the fortress of Tim's people was going to be attacked by the evil empire. Instead, the group turned it into this trial by fire where they entered into the ancient fire temple and defeated the ancient fire guardian Ifrit to claim the fire crystal. Drake then became the possessor of the fire crystal. The group then tried to escape escape from this other character who had now been sort of elevated into villain status, who retroactively got turned into hunting the crystals. The group then had a confrontation with him. The group got TPK'd, and as a consequence for that, he took the crystal to spare their lives, and now Drake had to give up the crystal in order to save his friends' lives. And now he is this, and also along the way, by the way, learned that he was genetically, magitechly engineered and created and grown in a tube, basically, by the villain. And now he has this, blood vendetta. All of that stuff came from no one and everyone. Was that Smith? Was that Tim? Was that me? I don't know. It could have been anybody. It was kind of all of our ideas bouncing off of everyone else, what they thought was cool, tweaked by somebody else, mitigated by a dice roll. I don't know what my campaign is. I know where we're at. I know where we've been, but the future is a web of possibilities. And what's cool is I never know what's going to happen next. And that's what makes the game fun for me as a GM. So that is that's that. So when you prepare the adventure, you're going to list the sights, dangers, and discoveries that you expect that to feature in the resolution. For each one, do as much prep as you find valuable. That's a great line of text, because everyone's going to need a different amount of prep. You, for a site, might want a fully detailed map. Another person might just want a couple of points of interest loosely connected by lines. Another person might not need any of that and just wants a couple bullet points. At the end of the day, only you know how much prep you find valuable. What do you need in order to feel comfortable and proficient at running your game? There's no right or wrong answer to this. For some people, they really, really, really enjoy the prep. It's my understanding that some people who run Fabula Ultima campaigns really love sitting down and creating these really complex boss monsters. That's not my thing. I don't find that part particularly enjoyable. But did I spend like 2 hours creating cool custom animations for Tim's character when he merges with his Arcanum and turns into sort of a Super Saiyan Cerberus form? Yes, because I thought that was pretty cool, and I thought that was fun. I was interested in it, so I engaged with it. I found it valuable, so I did it. And sure enough, my group was like, yay, this is awesome. So it was worth it to me. So do what you think is useful. Do what you think is valuable. Prep your sights, your dangers, and discoveries. And then finally, after you, go through the dungeon or fight the Krenwin in the woods and, discover the source of the river. Finally, you're going to have the aftermath. At some point, the PCs will call it quits and decide to head home. Maybe they seized that opportunity, or maybe they destroyed or put down the threat, or maybe they didn't. They lost their chance, or they're simply too exhausted to continue, but the game goes on. The game does not have to end in PC victory every time. And that's what makes the game interesting. You don't know what's going to happen. The truth of the matter is, when you sit down to play an adventure path, okay, you're going to beat the bad guy at the end of this adventure, or if he gets away, he's going to go to the next castle and you're going to get him in the next adventure. You kind of know that that's how it's going to. In fact, if it doesn't turn out that way, it's also good, because it means that you TPK'd and the campaign's probably over, or the GM is going to have to pull some massive bullshit Deus Ex Machina and, Deus Ex Machina and just get, figure out a way to be like, so you guys died, but the other party, they find your journals and they realize that the stone giants are a threat. So they're going to pick up exactly where you guys were. And they're also very conveniently one level higher than you guys are, but what you would have been if you had leveled up at the end of that adventure instead of all dying ignominiously in the giant's forge. But with a game like this, you really don't. You could legitimately not achieve your goal, and that's okay. Part of the problem is we set these really high bars for ourselves, these super hyper existential threats, where losing or not winning means, I don't know, the total protonic reversal, right? Imagine every molecule in the universe simultaneously exploding at the speed of light. That's the stakes that we set for ourselves as game masters, right? In order to make the adventure seem cool. And so then when we paint ourselves into a corner and it looks like the party's about to lose, that's when people start fudging, because they go, well, shit, they can't lose. Or, I don't know, my entire campaign is detonated with a nuclear bomb. But not in this game and not in PBTA games, you know? Oh, well, I mean, the players know they're on an adventure path, though, Marcus. I mean, I would be really surprised if most people playing, I don't know, Abomination Vaults or Extinction Curse don't know that they're playing Abomination Vaults or Extinction Curse. The impending doom for the Swin threat is that it subjugates and destroys the entire village. How is that not the same? Well, it's not the same for a couple of reasons, Gull. Number one, because you didn't get there overnight. You got there over the course of 5 or 6 grim portents. Secondly, because at the end of the day, your village is just one tiny village, right? It's not like, theoretically, your town could get completely subjugated and all of its people become thralls to this horrific fey creature of the woods. Your PCs aren't dead. The world isn't dead. Hell, what I just described is probably happening to some other village on the other side of, the region or the world right now. And you're not doing shit about it because it's just one tiny little indescript village. It matters to you. It matters to your players, maybe, but it doesn't. Then you start playing your twin sim. That's right. Stone Bottom. That's awesome.
I am strong. Strong. Strong.
It's like, look, we built a town. They said it was daft to build a town in the swamp, but we did it anyways. Well, that town fell over, collapsed, and sank. So we built a second town. So yeah, I mean, yes, this town has a mustache. The key here is that, it's the threats are existential to the town, but they're not existential to the world. They're not existential to the region. They're not existential to the whole game. And to be clear, the group may decide, I don't know, we retire. Or maybe your game goes off into such a crazy and feral dimension as to which the likes of which you've never seen before, right? And that's awesome too. But the most important part about it is that you didn't just one day, you didn't go on the adventure, lose, and come back, and the entire town is now subjugated by, Mr. Evil Snake Monkey Man, right? It was children went missing. Then some of the children returned. Then those children recruited followers. Then the villain revealed himself and demanded servitude. And only then, after these, 4 things, did he finally subjugate the town, killing and mesmerizing any opposition. And at the end of the day, you're absolutely right. Remember, Apocalypse World says, don't be afraid to put things in the crosshairs. This game says, let them burn. And as we look at the principles, these are the moves. Here we go. As much as you like your plans, as much as you've come to love some of your NPCs, as much as the players grow attached, protect no one and protect nothing. Many GMs have a tendency, a very natural tendency, to coddle the PCs and to shield the NPCs that they care about, to preserve the status quo, to save their villains for a future confrontation, even when the PC's moves and roles and bold actions should rightly have put them into the ground. That tendency, burn it away. Then let everything else burn too. You're not playing to preserve your darlings. You're playing to find out what happens. Now, this doesn't mean that you should go out of your way to destroy the things that the characters love, but it does mean that you should threaten those things. And if the characters fail to save them, you should follow the fuck through. And he didn't say follow the fuck through, but knowing Jeremy at this point, I think he would have said that. Be okay with hard, irrevocable consequences. Play with fire. Let things burn. You gave them their chance. You gave them several chances, and whether it was the fates or bad decisions or lack of action, the players did not convert. So, yeah, true story. Let it burn. So, this is a special double session, as we are going to keep going. It's not even 9 o'clock yet, and we made it through a chapter. But I did say in the thing that we might cover threats. So, we're going to cover the first of the sort of the meat and potatoes of a game master's, prep for a Stonetop game, for a Dungeon World game, which is threats, expeditions. These are our journeys, sites. This is, for lack of a better word, dungeons, dangers and discoveries, hazards, monsters, combat, discoveries, clues, sites, encounters, opportunities, artifacts, arcana, and then, of course, lastly, NPCs and followers. So we're going to start with threats. We're going to talk about how to write up threats. Now, we already kind of talked about these because we were talking about them earlier when we were talking about what his name was, Sajira the Swin, right? And how the progression. Now, Apocalypse World, Dungeon World calls these fronts. I'll be honest with you. I think threat's a better word, because I think it's more specific about what this is. And we're going to go through this. Now, it's not a particularly long chapter. It's, it's about 20 pages, but we're going to take a look. A threat is an ongoing problem that will cause trouble if left unchecked. Okay? Whenever you realize that something might be a recurring problem, it's probably worth to write it up as a threat. It's not strictly required. This is not a prescriptive tool. It is a descriptive tool. It is designed to help you and to be a source of not having to come up with everything out of your ass on the fly all the time. Okay? It helps you to create your little fun little, GM playbook that you can use in order to make things a little bit easier for yourself. And again, not every NPC, not every monster, not every situation needs to be a threat. Okay? Just like not every, in Fabula Ultima, not every bad guy needs to be a villain. But sometimes you want to put a little extra spin on it, right? So, sometimes, this is just me talking, sometimes something is going to be a threat and you write it up as a threat. You intend for it to be important. And guess what? Maybe the players kill it right away. Okay, let it burn. Other times, something you didn't think was important, the players really focus on. Or some crazy expanse of roles turns something into something important. Awesome. It wasn't a threat, but because of play, it became one. Maybe somebody rolls a 6- on some random monster, and suddenly that monster becomes this really important creature that you had no intention of ever being this threat. But because of randomness and playing to find out, it just becomes one. Because everyone's like, this is cool. This is awesome, Exactly. Pumpkin. Sometimes something was cool enough that it needs more emphasis and it becomes a threat. It's basically a way of saying, we're not done with this. We want to see this again. So here's a threat. We have Nia. Now, her threat type is wild card. Her instinct is to befriend spiders. A young girl, spider touched after her ordeal with the mother of spiders, Bloodwind's niece, daughter of Kadak. So she talks and plays with spiders. That's step one. Then she sets up a spider shrine. Then she brings home a baby giant spider. And then Aragog kills someone. And Hogwarts might get shut down. Stakes. How will the town react to her? Can her link to the spiders be broken? Can it be used for good? One of the things that I talk about a lot of what I use as a tool to help guide me when I'm running any RPG, but certainly a PBTA game. Derek, I am legitimately curious about questions. Many GMs are used to having to answer. Okay? But I like asking questions instead. I'm genuinely curious about my own campaign and about other players. And instead of answering those questions, I'm going to leave them unsolved. You know, we have this young girl who has some relationship to some of the characters, who has this ability after a weird ordeal with the mother of spiders. I don't know what that is. It's probably from book 2. She can now talk to the spiders. How will the town react to her? I could answer that. I could write out a classic adventure, you know, something that you would buy from some company, right? It would be like, Nia, after the town decries her as a witch, then the players have to convince the town. After the players convince the town that she's not a witch, there's still one person who takes it into her own hands and determines that they're going to kill her before anything bad happens. After the players fight this NPC, after they defeat the NPC, so obviously Nia doesn't die, then, you know, like all of these things are written out in advance. You know, there's no mystery. There's no question that stuff's going to happen. Even things that rely on random outcomes like combats are predetermined by these adventures. That's why I think they're so fucking boring. I don't know how the town's going to react to her. Maybe they go full Shireen Baratheon. And maybe it's this unbelievably horrible, tragic thing, you know? Maybe Bloodwind, you know, vows vengeance and revenge against the town for killing their innocent niece. Maybe they're the ones who light the fucking pyre. I don't know. But that's, by the way, if you don't know Shireen Baratheon, Game of Thrones, young girl burned at the stake. That to me is way more interesting. And to be honest with you, a lot easier. Because if I'm the game master, and now I've got to be like, okay, so the town has to hate her, and then the players have to try to convince the town, and then after the players do convince the town, then this one person goes and tries to kill her, then the players have to stop that character, then after the players do stop that character, that puts a lot of pressure on me as the game master to make sure that a bunch of shit happens in a very precise order, and that a bunch of dice rolls, which are inherently random, all go the right way so that we end up at the exact right point. Otherwise, the rest of the adventure is useless. It kills someone is the only impending doom. In this particular threat, yes. Again, you know, we're used to D&D where it's like, what, an entire nation didn't get wiped out? What are we even worried about? But I mean, you know, if the person it kills is a beloved NPC, or, you know, it's somebody's, you know, it's somebody important in town, or, you know, it's a small town of only like a couple hundred people. How many threats do you think is too many? I'm sure they're going to answer here, but, you know, 5, more than 5, I think is too many, but. So here's another example. Thorn Thumb, a magical entity with the instinct to acquire. It dwelt in the Green Lord's tomb. Tried to steal from the PCs, but they caught him. helped him kill Sajra, grudgingly promised Vahid not to steal from them, harm them, or trap them, lusts after the mind gem, scared of Rihanna, thinks Caradoc is an easy mark, Bloodwind owes him for the flower he gave her. When you send word to Thornthumb via spirits, birds, or beasts, say when and where in the wood you'd like to meet. At the appointed time and place, roll plus int. On a 10 or higher, he shows on a 7 through 9. But the GM picks one. He's insulted. You are now beholden to him, or a debt he owes you is now fulfilled. Thornthumb was a monster that the PCs met in play. They captured him, allied with him, were betrayed by him, and then extracted a promise from him to let them be. But he's still out there, and he's the type of guy to hold a grudge. He's a threat. Here's a villain. Exiled from Stonetop years ago. After poisoning folks during a harsh winter, less mouths to feed. Sounds like somebody's player character from a particularly brutal campaign. Hey, thank you, G-Helmet.
Gelmet tipped $10. Since the goal are already reached, just supporting. Remember everyone to use their Twitch Amazon free sub. Almost forgot mine. Nice show.
Thank you. I forgot about it as well. That's right. If you want to support us for free, you can do that with twitch.tv/nightsTheLastCall. We're streaming over there too, where if you have Amazon Prime, once a month, you get to sub for free. Thank you, G-Helmet, and appreciate the tip. Thank you. Anwin hasn't shown up on screen yet. She was a player's answer to who's the worst person that you know of in Gordon's Delve and why are they so scary. She's not a problem yet, but the PCs are headed to Gordon's Delve and she sure will be. She and her minions are threats. Writing up a threats is a way to track loose ends, simmering context, and to help you portray the world. So when should you write up threats? Well, after session 0, after you look at your notes and you see who did people talk about? Who did they make? Who did they create? What came up? Anytime the seasons change. Whenever the seasons change, we do that big season move. We generate new threats, new opportunities. It's a great time to think about threats. Maybe something that the players dealt with becomes a threat, or maybe something that was vaguely hinted at becomes a threat, or maybe it's an opportunity for you as the GM. A lot of times I will introduce something when the game kind of gives me, when the game gives me the conch, when the game gives me the spotlight. Sometimes it's an opportunity for me to add something that I, as the GM, I'm curious about. Now, I'm not going to provide the resolution, but I want to put the question out there. Like, what would happen if, like, the spirits of the dead started, or the spirits of the underworld started to become unquiet? I'm just curious about that. I want to add a little bit of, dark, spooky horror to the game. And, I want to see how that, I want to put that out there. I don't know how it's going to resolve, but I am curious about it. So let's see it. Okay, cool. Put it out there. You might do it after a session if an element, an NPC, a situation, right, caused trouble, was kind of left to hang. The players really thought it was interesting. They thought it was cool. Make a note. Hey, maybe that's something worth bringing back. All right, so here is the specific mechanics of writing out a threat. We've talked about it before, but you're going to give it a name and a type. You're going to add it to a threat tracker. You're going to give it an instinct. You're going to write a couple of quick descriptions. If it has momentum, you're going to write out its doom steps and its grim portent. Remember, not every threat has a plan, right? They're not all Cylons, right? Some threats, and we saw examples of that. Some threats aren't like actively pursuing an agenda. Not every threat needs an impending doom and grim portents. Some threats are just a problem, but not for right now. Okay? And again, these are the optional ones. You don't have to write stakes, but they're a good way for you as a GM to be like, okay, I've got this threat, but now I'm wondering, like, how will Bob's character deal with, how will Bob's character deal with this? Will Smith feel any compunction? Will Smith feel any twisting loyalties between this and this? Right? Like, they're questions I'm genuinely curious about and how the players are going to respond to it. All right. So we've got classic Stonetop. We've got a fucking essay on every single type of threat. We've got afflictions, beasts. And these, remember, these are not prescriptive. These are descriptive. These are suggestions, ideas, advice. It's not literally the only list of stuff that you can do. But if you have a threat that is a beast, then some ways that you might showcase or use that beast threat are things like showing up where it's not wanted, stalking prey, protecting its home or family, flying into a rage, consuming something or someone, grow or diminish in size or numbers, which is a little different from an affliction. These aren't tangible things. This is a behavior, a circumstance, a condition. It could affect an NPC, it could affect an entire group, or even an entire region. We have institutional threats. We have the MacGuffin threat. We have magical entities like Fae and the things below. We have rabble. It is a group with or without a leader, united by emotion, blood, or circumstance, rather than any sort of common purpose or goal. We have a villain. We have a wild card. Wild cards are individuals who cause trouble just because they're a mystery, or because the PCs care about them, but they can't trust them, or because they're opposed to the PCs, but they're not necessarily a bad person. Now, your GM playbook has 3 spreads for tracking threats. We have home front threats. These are for NPCs or groups that live in town. Nearby threats, which are within short distance of the town, or distant threats, which is anything beyond that immediate environs of Stonetop. So add the threat's name, maybe a quick descriptor, add its type, and put it into the right column. As you continue to write up this threat, you might find it useful to add more details to it, like its lair or whatever, but again, you're not going to write down the whole thing. Now, instincts are great. They, when in doubt, this is the, if I don't know what this enemy should be doing in this situation, okay, this is what its core existence is. All right. And ideally it's problematic, because if their instinct didn't cause problems, if their instinct wasn't harmful, it wouldn't be a threat. Okay. So use a threat's instinct to guide how it behaves and guide how it reacts. If you're unsure of what a threat would do, look to its instinct. Have it do that. And again, that's why I said it's for me, it is the core essential nature of how I help guide monsters. Now, like we were talking about this, and I was saying about how I love the Dungeon World monster manual. Now, I'm sure we'll get to this in I'm sure we'll get to this in their book as well, but I just want to bring up the Dungeon World SRD. And I've always said that I find these monsters descriptions to be really, really useful, because I can just take a look at them and I immediately know how to play them based off of a few lines of text. Okay, like here is a orc berserker. His instinct is to rage. His moves are to fly into a frenzy and to unleash chaos. Note, he doesn't have any sort of like encounter power or recharge power or daily power or fear spend ability. Okay. And then, we got a bunch of flavor text here that almost doesn't really matter, right? We have a mutated creature with 20 hit points, no armor, does D10 plus 5 damage with the cleaver. His instinct is to rage, and his default actions are fly into a frenzy and unleash chaos. That is all I need to play that monster. Now, that's different from, say, Orc One-Eye, which has the special quality of One Eye, his instinct is to hate. His default moves are to rend flesh with divine magic, to take an eye, to make a sacrifice, and grow in power. Okay? So, I don't need anything else other than that. Because again, this game isn't about sport. It's not about combat as sport. It's not about challenging the players and seeing if they could win. And if there was ever a consequence or question about that, right, we know that Stonetop was very explicit. This is not a game about winning. It's about guiding behavior. And so those are monsters. Instincts do the same thing with monsters that they do with threats. When in doubt, what does this thing do? Why is this thing doing what it does? We then write up a description. Now this, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to write up a description because I'm writing a monster for me and a threat. I probably know what it is and I can keep it, loosely developed. If you're writing something for someone else or for something published or whatever like that, I mean, that could be useful. And maybe occasionally you might jot down some notes in case you can't remember it. But I'll be completely honest with you, I never write down anything for my threats. I just don't. I'm going to remember, I'm going to remember this stuff, so I don't write it down. But this is basically just notes on the monster or notes on the threat, which is fine. So then we talked about this, momentum, impending doom. Okay? If the threat has momentum, that is, if it is changing, evolving, pursuing an agenda, getting worse, what is that bad thing that we are headed towards? That's the impending doom. And it doesn't have to be world-shaking or terrible. Now, it could be, but keep in mind that, you need to check to that. You need to hold to that. Right? The key thing about an impending doom is that it's irreversible. Once it's happened, there's no going back. There's a strong tendency for people to want to make something terrible happen and then have the PCs figure out a way to undo it, right? To control Z it. That's weak. That's weak shit. Don't do that. Let it ride. Let it ride. Let the consequences matter. Let the game move forward. Don't always have your PCs be in the business of just undoing everything cool that happened. And cool can mean devastating. Cool can mean heartbreaking. But there's just this natural tendency for everybody to have the NPCs, the villains, the monsters. They want to do some really cool, awesome, amazing thing that's going to change the world forever. And the players are the defenders of the status quo. The players make sure that nothing ever interesting happens ever. And that if something bad happens, the players find a way to completely reverse it and completely undo it. And there's no consequences. Even the dog survived, right? That is so much of everything. One of the things I really respected about Marvel in Endgame is obviously they go and get the gemstones and they bring everyone back. Except, I thought they were going to bring everyone back as if it was 5 years ago. But they didn't, right? They brought them back to right now, to today, which meant the world still had that period of time where those people were gone and people still had that trauma and that fallout. We saw that the Vision and Black Widow could not be brought back, even with the power of the Infinity Stones, right? The consequences of Thanos winning had a lingering effect. They didn't just Control Z undo it, which I thought was really awesome that they did that. Even though the players were able to go and get a second victory after their loss, it didn't completely undo it. Now, once you've established what the threat is going to do, come up with 2 to 4. There's the answer. 2 to 4 grim portents. These are the milestones along the way that diegetically demonstrate the threat's progression. They are your clock ticks. They just happen to have a effect in the fiction. Now, to be clear, I think you should be doing that with your clock ticks anyways, which is actually part of the reason why I actually think fronts are cool. I actually, in some ways, I prefer front. Clocks are easier because you don't have to do anything, but Just to be clear, grim portents are things that happen to the world around the PCs. They are not things that the PCs do. The townsfolk form cults is a grim portent. The PCs learn who the cultists are is not. It presumes that the PCs care enough to even investigate the cult. That they investigated and that they succeeded at that investigation. That's not a grim portent. That's a fucking railroad. And again, Jeremy didn't say fucking, but I'm going to say it on his behalf. But so many, okay, a lot of adventures, published adventures, are written like impending dooms and grim portents, except they're written out as things that the PCs do, right? How many adventures have you read that has like a synopsis at the beginning of them that say, first the PCs will head to this town. Once the PCs get there, they will investigate the mysterious disappearances. Through their investigations, the PCs will learn about a mysterious group of elves that moved into the town or moved into the city a few months ago. Investigating these strange elves, the players will learn that they're actually demons disguised as elves. After the players enter into the demon's lair, they'll fight their way to the end where they discover that the demon's leader isn't actually a demon at all. Instead, it's the head of this organization. Once the players defeat that person and kill them, they'll discover in a journal that actually that is but the tip of an iceberg of a much larger, right? That's how adventures are written. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. It's so boring to me. People love it though, by the way. You should definitely write them and sell them to people because they love them. And it's because they're creatively dead inside. I understand it. And by the way, I don't mean that as a slight. I get that not everybody wants to play role-playing games to create and to tell stories. Some people play role-playing games for the same reason they watch movies or they play most video games, because they want to do this. Right? I mean, that's like, what I just described there is like America's favorite national pastime, which is consuming media while not paying attention to it and doom scrolling on your phone. Like that's America's favorite, spot. That's their favorite thing to do. What is it? What is it like? Ha 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 ha. They are not prepared to stand against my power. Buddy, this is a Herman Miller. I'm not destroying my lumbar for shit. In fact, I am perfectly well supported, sir. I have, it's adjusting to my spine. It's cradling every curve, okay? If I'm going to sit in a chair all day talking to you folks, I'm sitting in a Herman Miller. Or, I want to get, what's the other one I like? Haythorne. There's another chair brand that has a chair that is really cool. Let me actually, I'm going to pull it up. I got to find it. Tangent. Hayworth or Haworth. I actually don't know how it's actually pronounced, but gotta find it. It's gotta find it. Oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. It's the Fern Digital Knit office chair. It comes in this burnt orange color, which, you know me and orange. Apparently their page isn't loading. That's cool. There we go. So this is the Fern office chair with the Ember. That's the name of the color. Ember. The Ember digital knit fabric. Okay. And this is the Fern. And this thing is amazing. Yes, it is $1,500. But my God, look at it. No, digital knit. I mean, you can get it in different styles. Like you can get a mesh, Some people like the mesh. I admit, I actually have an office chair from IKEA. I actually got it from IKEA. It was still pretty expensive. It was still like a $200 office chair, maybe, from IKEA. But it's a fully mesh chair with a really high back. I actually really like it. I mean, I love my Herman Miller, but it's a really nice chair. So I get the mesh. The mesh is nice. I just love the digital knit because I love this ember color. It looks so good. Anyways. But I'm a big fan. So one of the things I love about this chair is this thing right here. Option number 5. Now you can pay extra money for this, okay? Which is called the forward tilt, okay? And you can get it with the forward tilt. If you get it with the forward tilt, it does raise the price up to $1,650, okay? So it's almost $1,700 with the forward tilt. So what's the forward tilt? It actually takes the seat and angles it forward. Now that may seem kind of crazy, but I would love to have that. In fact, if you watch when I'm streaming, I don't know if you guys can see this. You'll see it a lot. A lot of times I do, you see where the back of my chair is? I've actually turned my chair sideways. And the reason I do that is so that I want to lean in. Okay? I don't want to be back. I want to be in. Right? Number 1, it makes my face look better. And number 2, it puts me more on mic. But it also just kind of gives that sensation of me being engaged. So the way that chair works, this chair does not have that, is it locks into a 5-degree forward lean. And so it actually takes your back off of the lumbar support and actually has you kind of leaning in. Now, I'm not saying that I would do that for a longer period of time, but during a stream, I think it would be totally valuable. We're almost done. Anyways, point is, I think I think chairs are cool, and I think they're important, especially for those of us who sit in them a lot. Now, we have information about writing them. We have an introduction of how do you deal with this? Well, the key thing to understand about any of the Grim Portents is this is you saying, this is what's going to happen if the PCs don't get involved. Now, there are some GMs who go like, I want a hyper-simulationist thing, and I want to just like roll randomly. How do I know if the one evil army will take out the other evil army? And you could theoretically leave it up to a fortune die if you really don't want to know. But generally speaking, you are basically writing the future of your campaign as if the players didn't exist. Which means that when the players do get involved, the 100% plan is that they are going to fuck it up. They are going to take all of these portents and dooms and they are going to shit all over them. Okay? And that is, I think, something that you really need to wrap your mind around. You are not creating what is going to happen. You are creating probably what is not going to happen because the players are going to get involved. Okay? And one of the GM moves, which we covered way back, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when we were covering GM moves, is advance towards an impending doom. And when that happens, look at the Grim Portents for one of your threats. Check the next one off and show the PCs that some sign that it's occurred. Now, you might do this when the seasons change and the players roll a threat. You might also do this as a hard move that you want to make. Now, to be clear, the party could be in the woods, I don't know, trying to dam a river, and someone rolls a 6- and you're like, the children are all possessed. And then like the next person like goes, okay, I'm going to roll to see if I can catch some fish. And they roll a 6- and you're like, the children have formed a cult back in town. And the players are like, okay. And then like somebody else does something and then they roll a 6- and you're like, an evil villain appears and says, I'm taking over. And you're like, what is going on? Okay. You could do that technically. I advise that you don't, right? Like anything. I mean, these things require some skill and some nuance. You want time for things to cook. Because again, if I was trying to beat the players and I was trying to destroy Stonetop, I'd be like, why wouldn't I just, every time the players roll 6-, why wouldn't I just tick an advancing doom and just have them completely wipe out everything that the players care about? I mean, you could do that. Technically, you would not be following your principles or agendas, but you could do that. The problem with PBTA is that it rightfully understands that as the GM, you have the power to make your campaign shitty. And it gives you that authority, if you wish, to make your power shitty, or to make your campaign shitty. And no power or force of God or man can stop you from doing that if you were so inclined to do so. So again, it goes through, it talks about the potential grim portents, and it builds up that doom list that we talked about for this, fey monkey snake creature. And lastly, stakes. Now, this is optional. This is where, again, I don't really write these down because typically I'm just naturally curious and I kind of want to know, and I kind of think it's, like, for example, okay, if the children get kidnapped, whose children get kidnapped, and do the PCs know them? When the PCs come, when the children come back and they seem a little weird, how will so-and-so react? How will one of the PCs react who doesn't trust the Fae? Like, will he be suspicious of them? I don't know. Derek doesn't know. And I, myself, am kind of curious about this. Now, spoiler alert, minor, for something 3 years ago. I talk about this all the time. When I ran my root campaign, I thought of a threat. And I was creating a threat for this one adventure. And I thought, I'm going to create a threat. I'm going to create the leader of this rebel cell in this town. And I went, I'm going to make it Bob's brother. And one of the stakes for me was, how will Lucius, that was his character's name, how will Lucius react to learning that his brother is alive and that his brother is the leader of this rebel cell? I was like, I'm curious. I wonder how Bob is going to react to this. Bob as a person is really big into family. Bob as a person, he puts family, above everything, not just his immediate family. Bob is really close with his secondary family, his cousins and aunts and uncles. It's a big part of his deal. And Bob makes a big deal about family. In fact, a lot of the things I throw Bob's way typically have to do with family, because I myself am curious about my friend and what makes him tick. And, can I find a weak point, right? I want to twist the knife. And, as very famously, Bob discovered that the leader of the rebel cell was his brother. One of the other PCs firebombed the treetop village that they were in. It was a raging inferno. And Bob and his brother, came to blows. And Bob got the best of him. And his brother, started to fall off of the burning treetop platform city. And I basically said, Bob, do you save your brother? And Bob said, no, I push him. I let him go. He goes, and of course his chat said, oh my God, he just got full Mufasa'd. And Bob's like, yeah, no, totally. I Mufasa him. And I was like, oh damn, I did not see that coming. Man, I'm glad I played to find out. And that was awesome. Bob was like, nope, he's dead to me. I thought he was dead anyways. I can't believe I don't hold him in any sort of regard. Be gone from me. I mean, if you want to be a little bit more classic, from the very beginning, and the very first adventure for Rise of the Rune Lords, is a very famous horse that a lot of groups have run across in Thistletop, that the goblins have captured because they're afraid of it, and it's kind of mad with grief. And there's a whole section about how, the horse is really upset because it's been sort of mistreated by the goblins. And, 99%, and and the adventure is even written after the players attempt to calm the horse and maybe make some handle animal checks. It will be a fine steed and could serve as an animal companion for a ranger or whatever. Bob was like, it's being too loud, rage. He cut the horse's head off. Oh, take care, Gaul. We're almost done anyways. And again, lastly, optional, you can even write some moves that the creature might take, like, again, if you need some advice, to help you, again, this is all a tool to help you run this threat. So for example, some GM moves that this villain might use might be turn the weak-willed into fawning servants, plant a suggestion in another's mind, The group is like trying to fight the villain, and he's like disappearing in smoke and mirrors, and then he suddenly, it's like the camera is facing the PC, like square on, and then suddenly, like almost like the audience sees him, but the player doesn't. Like the face of the villain appears like right next to his ear. It's kind of metaphorical, and he whispers into his ear, "Covered in scorpions, covered in scorpions," and then the player's like, "Oh no, covered in scorpions," and starts flailing around. Deep cut, if not that deep of a cut. We're all nerds here. But like, that's something that this villain might do. Now, do I need to write this? Am I saying that the only two things that this villain can do is that it can plant a suggestion or turn the weak-willed into fawning servants? No, but it's just helping me frame and contextualize what this guy might do and can't do. So here we have a bunch of examples. Again, examples. From Mutra the teeth to a wound, right? Someone's wound. That's a threat, right? Garrett's leg got mauled by feathered drakes. Bloodwind patched him up, but he's still walking on it. It could get bad. The wound isn't healing well. He's weak and slow. The wound gets infected. It needs to be amputated. He becomes feverish and delirious, and then he dies. Right? So it's even a wound could be a threat, not just a monster. Lots and tons of examples. And then most importantly, over time, check back with your threats. Maybe it's not a threat anymore because it doesn't matter anymore, or they got killed, or those people aren't even fighting anymore. Maybe its threat type no longer rings true. Maybe it started off as one thing, but it's become something different. Maybe its instinct changes. Maybe the player's fucked up its whole life and now it needs a new plan because everything it was trying to do got completely wrecked by the players and now it needs to do something different. Yes, Shinobi, it was X-Men, the cartoon show. And again, more examples given. And that is the end of that chapter. Folks, we're on page 301. We did it. We're halfway through Stonetop Book 1. What up? Let's give it up. Let's give it up. We did it. We did it. So it goes without saying, this is a great book, and you should definitely check it out. I myself am really looking forward to getting it. Will I be playing it? I don't know. I do not know. There's a lot of PBTA games that I could be playing, and low fantasy, Iron Age, Village PBTA may not be at the top of my list. Admittedly, one of the games I've been wanting to play for a very long time, I'm going to get a chance to play. It got delayed because I got sick, and then I got busy with NightCon, and then NightCon. But we haven't started the Avatar campaign yet, but we're going to. And I'm really looking forward to playing that. That'll be really cool. I've run that a couple of times as one-shots, but I've never run a series, a season, an arc. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. That'll be really fun. But nonetheless, this is fantastic. This is fantastic advice for anyone, pretty much anyone who wants to GM a non-competitive game. You want to GM a competitive game where you're trying to, see if the players can build a PC or maybe their players are smart enough and they can come up with clever enough solutions so that they can beat the challenges, right? Then maybe this isn't the best advice. But if you're trying to if you're playing role-playing games because you want to create dynamic, immersive, collaborative storytelling, then I think these advice is the gold standard for sure. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Good stuff. Speaking of arcs, Thursday we may stream a little bit differently. I need to play a game of Arcs with Bob and with Trevor from the Patreon Discord. And I need to play them. I need to teach them how to play Arcs, and they need to have a complete playthrough of an Arcs game before we go to NightCon. Because at NightCon, we're going to be running the Blighted Reach. And the Blighted Reach is basically 3 Arcs games in a trench coat. And your first experience with Arcs can't be 3 Arcs in a trench coat. You need to play Arcs by itself. And because of timing and, you know, the fact that Bob and Trevor have kids, and Bob especially, young kids, has been, you know, basically he's like, I'm available for 3 hours on the third moon circular system every 4th quaternary or whatever. So Bob has been really busy. And a lot of times when Bob is free, it's been on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which are not great because I stream. So unfortunately, we have run out of time. And so Thursday, I may have to run a game of Arcs with Bob and Trevor, and maybe someone else from the Discord if they're interested in playing Arcs with us and learning. And it really is going to be more of an educational component because I want them to know how the flow of the game works so that when they go to play the Blighted Reach campaign, they at least have somewhat of a sense of what they're doing. I mean, we're going to play the game, but it's really more of a teach and play. And that we might stream that because why not? Additionally, we were not scheduled to run the One Ring on Sunday because I was going to take off because it's my last weekend before NightCon. However, I'm so excited by the One Ring campaign. I've been so happy with how it's been going. The players have been great. Their feedback has been great. I think I'm just having a lot of fun with it, exploring the mechanics and having good time with it. And the fact that we didn't finish the adventure, and now we're going to take potentially a 2-week break and then come back and do the one session. I'm like, it just feels so bad from a timing perspective. I'd love to be able to finish that adventure before we take the break for NightCon because I'll be in Columbus the following Sunday. So I'm really going to see if the group is available. We're going to play on Sunday as well. So, TTS. Have I played Trophy at all? No, I have not. I'm familiar with it, but I have not played it. It would definitely be one of those, like, it might even be on the first look queue. I don't know. Thank you, Agile Monk. Thank you. I mean, it's been a long haul, but again, I cannot stress this enough. Folks have been exceedingly generous with their support for this particular content. And I mean, just tonight we had Edward, G Helmet, Edward several times, including getting his name wrong. G Helmet, Pathfinder PhD, Scotty F, Mark T, Jake, Galdacat to the silliest degree, Jackal Torn Moons, Klobster Roll, Forsyke, so we just had like just 7 or 8 or 9 people who came out to support this stuff, including Fuck Stonetop. To be clear, I am gonna try to cover Burning Wheel before we go to NightCon, or maybe we'll cover Burning Wheel at NightCon. I don't know, but so we're still gonna be talking about other stuff, and I don't want it to just literally be Stonetop. But the fact of the matter is, I think this is a seminal work, and I think it deserves the attention. Because a lot of people, this is not just about PBTA, it's about Daggerheart, honestly, too. And I think a lot of people need this education. So I think it's good. There's even some stone topping going on at NightCon. I know. I saw. I'm bringing up the NightCon list. There is Pulf is running a Stonetop game, but unfortunately it is full. Booth B, Kalana, Logan, and Erica are all going to be playing. Hey, thank you, Calcifer. Appreciate the Prime subby. Again, if you want to support this channel because you like this content, guys, God knows YouTube doesn't like this content. But if you like this content and you want to subscribe for free, you can do so, just like Calcifer Sparks did, by using your Amazon Prime account, which you paid for already, and you get one of these a month, and you should use it on somebody. Doesn't have to be me. I don't care. Just take Jeff Bezos' money and give it to a streamer you like. Hell, give it to a random streamer. Give it to somebody. Jeff Bezos doesn't need your money. But yeah, we've got and it looks like it's a two-parter. Yeah, Pulf is running a two-parter with the same people. There you go. I have no idea. My guess is it theoretically helps me, but my guess is my channel is so unpopular, and the way that I create content is so bad from YouTube's algorithm standpoint, it probably doesn't really help me, you know. I am currently signed up for, let's see, a Savage World game that no one else has signed up for, so I'm the only player, so that's cool. I am signed up for a Daggerheart game, which looks like I'm the only person that I'm signed up for, so that's cool. So hopefully some other people sign up for the games that I'm in, because otherwise I'm just playing by myself. But I've got, and then of course I'm running arcs. I'm doing maybe a magic draft, you know, whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it was I think the event was added late to the event list, so maybe people just haven't gone back and checked it out. I mean, we've got 45 people or something coming, so I'm assuming that there's going to be a lot of people who are just, there's probably a lot of people who don't want to who don't want to like commit, so they're not signing up. It looks like the person who's running it is running a couple different Savage World games. The one I signed up for is Savage Worlds Fantasy Disappearance of Capital City. So it sounded cool. I said fantasy. I said, that's cool. I'll try it out. Because the other one was sci-fi. You know, I'm more of a fantasy guy than a sci-fi guy. So I signed up for the fantasy one. But I also signed up for Jeff Redicop's Pathfinder 2 game, which is currently right now me and Jace. But it's a TBD, so I don't know exactly when it's going to be, but hopefully I can fit it in. Have you considered the possibility that it's because you signed up for those games? I don't know. I don't think you think that would keep people from signing up for a game. I don't know. I don't think so. I started watching Derek after he did an evil Pikachu impression on RFC, and now I'm my favorite dungeon tuber. Great stream as always. Well, thank you, Loiger. I don't remember my evil Pikachu impression. Hey, yeah, that's great. I mean, we go deep on some games. Other times it's just about us exploring a bunch of other games and other stuff that I myself I'm trying to learn, just like all of you have. So. Boothby has probably spent much more time in these sign-up sheets than I have. It says these spots have been unsigned for a while. Derek does not seem to have had an impact. Okay, there we go. I mean, partially I signed up for what was, open. There was I also signed up for an Eat the Reich game. That one does have 3 people and signed up for it. So for Eat the Reich, so. And then, of course, I'm considering, maybe running a game or 2 or 3 as well. Possibly some pickup games. Maybe like Danger Patrol or, Danger Patrol, or maybe could be some sort of Dungeon World-esque type game. Could be Monster Hearts. Could be Free Market. What else? Could be Lady Blackbird. Fiasco, of course. The game that beat Draw Steel. No, those are the games I would have signed up for anyways. Thank you very much. I'm trying to think. Is there any game I would have run? No, I've never run the game, ever. No one has ever run Free Market at a con. In fact, no one may have ever run Free Market before, ever, in the history of the universe. Like, for example, like I don't want to play X-Crawl Classics. I don't really want to play Draw Steel. I probably would have played Rapscallion, but pirates aren't really my thing. Like, there's an Outgun Pirates, there's a Rapscallion, there's a Pirate Bane. We have like 5 pirate games. I mean, technically, we're trying to create a pirate game. Someone's running a Pulp Cthulhu game. Ugh, who would want to play that? I just have no interest in playing a very hyper tactical, detail, grid-based combat miniature game. Dr. Dehart is running an Apocalypse Keys game, and I would totally play that, but I think it runs into my my Arcs game, which I am really well committed to. That was like the first thing I signed up for, and I'm surprised that more people haven't signed up for that, because Apocalypse Keys is really cool, and I love the Hellboy movies, and Apocalypse Keys is basically Hellboy the PBTA game, so I thought that was really cool. Yeah. Maybe I can fit. I don't think I can. I was gonna say Ryan is running Mothership, and that would be kind of cool to run into. That's only got 2 people too, Theophrastus and Erica, but I would run into that as well. But that's running at the same time basically as GM Setso's Pirate Bane game. So, anyways, we'll find out. Again, there's like 18 or 19 people's names on this list, and we have like 44 people coming. So my guess is there's going to be a lot of people who are just, they don't want to commit, and they're going to be like just standing around waiting for an open spot, But anyways, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So that's going to do it for me. I may be back Thursday with us playing Arcs on Tabletop Simulator. So you guys can all learn how to play Arcs. One of my absolute favorite board games of all time, even though it only came out like a couple years ago. Cole Worley stuff is incredible. It's amazing. Between Oath and Arcs, it's like they're like the closest board game analog I've ever gotten to a PBTA game, to a role-playing game ever. I think that they're amazing and they're incredible, and I can't wait to play the full version of Arcs. Edward, no, I didn't upload it yet. I made it, but when I copied the old one, it didn't get fixed. So no, I need to update it basically. So yeah, that is going to do it for me. I, of course, will be over on Knights of Last Call Patreon. Like, at this point, I'm kind of good for NightCon, sort of. I mean, everything's been ordered. I spent about $2.5 grand on shirts, banners, merch, stickers, what's its, who's its, ribbons, the whole 9 yards. So, all in, and it looks like it's all going to be here on time. Fingers crossed. Some of it's getting delivered to the hotel because it's kind of come in at the last minute. Because again, it took us a lot longer because we got kind of fucked by our logos. But luckily, Jace was able to save us and put something together really quick. That was really awesome. And but then it did delay us about a week. So instead of having it comfortably here with a week to spare, it's like arriving the week of. So I just decided to ship a lot of it to my hotel. That way, if it comes in late, at least we'll be there for the con. But yeah, should be cool. Should be awesome. We'll definitely do a stream or 2 from there as well. So that's going to do it for me. Shout out again to everybody who supported us tonight. This was amazing. This is awesome. Stonetop has been really cool for me as well to sort of remind me, and honestly, what I love about PBTA. And I'm looking forward to getting into some of the expedition dangers and discoveries. But to be clear, those are kind of cribbed from Perilous Wilds. So that's kind of not new tech for me. It's kind of old tech, probably cleaned up, repurposed. And then that's really more like Jason Lutz type stuff, kind of, which is more lamp black and brimstone stuff put into this Strandberg stuff. But it's really good. So I'm looking forward to taking a look at it. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for me tonight. Thank you so much. Stay frosty out there. And as always, we'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call. Peace.